Hey there. So my next guest has built something like super cool. Like his background wasn't even in video games. Like he came from like the sports world and he brought all the sports journalism knowledge with him. And he's bringing it over into esports where he's created this like ESPN style distribution platform where they have people talking about the different esports and the players and the goings on of the teams. And this is really cool what he's building because it's like nobody else is doing this. And this is going to go somewhere. So I really hope you guys enjoy this one. Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the Gamerpreneur podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Bradford Carlton. Today I have a very special guest with us. I have Aron Glatzer with Preediction, an esports talk show network. Hey there, Aron. How's it going?
I'm well, hanging in. How are you?
It's a beautiful sunny day in Las Vegas. I can't complain. How about yourself?
Yeah, no, I'm out in Marin outside San Francisco, and it's about high 70s, hiking terrain out here and a lot going on in esports, so it's all good.
I'm very familiar with the area. I grew up on the East Bay, actually. So very cool. All right, so Aron, why don't you begin by just telling us a little bit about yourself and Preediction?
Yeah, so my background is more in the traditional sports digital media side. I was the first content employee at Bleacher Report, helped build them up over the years, then left and ran content for a seed stage sports podcast network. And just through networking and kind of digging deeper into the esports media space, I realized how kind of early on it is. And as far as opinionated analysis and what we get in sports talk radio and also podcast networks for traditional sports, there's really nothing there yet on the comprehensive side for esports. So I saw a big opportunity, and we've just kind of been systematically building out very credible, informative and entertaining shows with pro players for different esports, pro casters and commentators, pro coaches and folks like that, providing opinionated analysis on what's yet to happen and coming ahead for the esports that you're the biggest fans of.
Fantastic. I'm in full agreement with you right there. Now, there's a lot to unpack, and before we do, I'm going to ask you the same question I start every interview with. So this is the same thing everybody else gets. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being high, how weird are you, Aron?
I'm a solid 8. Yeah, I'm pretty. I don't know, pretty out there. I'm big interpretive dancer, big karaoke. I don't take myself too seriously. So
you got the dude on your shirt, so I mean, hey,
dude abides.
That's right. I love that movie. All right, so this is the Gamerpreneur. So I kind of need your gaming cred. Where'd you start first playing video games?
Yeah, I mean, as a kid with Nintendo, I grew up with Super Mario. I grew up in the cul-de-sac having some serious battles for Tecmo Super Bowl, and expanded to Super Nintendo and expanded to Nintendo 64 and the kind of PlayStation from there. So I've grown up with it, but absolutely.
Okay, fantastic. You playing anything at the moment or looking forward to anything?
I'm more on like the watching strategy side now with with our show hosts kind of walk me through some of their worlds and I'm really watching a lot of what's happening.
It's funny you say that. I was just on the phone with somebody yesterday, and they told me the deeper that you get into the video game industry, the less time you have to play.
Yeah. I mean, I think it differs for every person, but I'm more on the creative content strategy side, and I'm trying to kind of merge the worlds of what's existing and playing to the strengths of our hosts with what can be really creative and entertaining and informative for their audiences, that making them think a little differently.
Okay, so I have to ask, like, you grew up as a gamer, but you also did the sports thing. Like, how does that jive? Because the gamers and the jocks, they never meshed in high school, for me at least.
I mean, those lines are getting very, very blurred. Like, the coolest guys in the NBA now are huge gamers. So I think, I think I wouldn't consider myself like a jock. I just grew up being like a huge sports fan, and I was probably more on the like nerdy analytics side of it, of being very into statistics and trying to help figure out the future. Like, I've always been very big into the draft processes for NFL and NBA and Major League Baseball and NHL, and that sort of like speculative world of drafting and free agency and trades has always been super interesting to me. And I think that played a big role in, kind of what I did at Bleacher Report. And as that, a lot of esports is emulating traditional sports framework, and you're going to see over time, I believe, free agency is starting to happen more, but things like trades and drafts, will be happening over time, and that sort of world and concepts are what really intrigues me from a fan perspective.
Okay. Coming from the sports, your reporting background, do you agree with that's the path that esports should be taking? Should esports be following that traditional, like, freelance,
I mean, I don't think
model?
I don't think it's a direct correlation for everything, but I do think, with some of these esports that are going the franchise and league route, and I think there are obviously a lot of areas you can learn in fan development and monetization from the traditional sports world that have a lot of that down to a science that I think that translates, and fan behavior translates, but the games themselves are super different, and the media is consumed in a different way. So I think you just play to the strengths, but knowing fan models, there's a lot to learn from.
Okay. So, like, this is kind of a different interview than I've normally done. I'm just going to go completely off script on this one. And, like, who holds the power in esports? Is it the publishers? Is it the teams? Is it the fans? Like, who's running the show?
Yeah, I mean, I think the fan behavior is going to ultimately be the driver, and that happens for everywhere from sports to music. And I think you need to the engagement's obviously super high in esports, and the line is a little blurred. Like, there's so much access to the players and to the team orgs through things like Twitch chat, and even some of our shows are doing call-ins, and that sort of barrier is a lot more open than it's been in traditional sports. I think technology is a big reason for that. But yeah, if you don't have the fans happy and engaged, you're not going to forget about monetizing it or building it into a massive operation. You need fans, and you need the game. The game itself has to be awesome, and you have to get the right talent, competing in it, and it's that sort of ecosystem.
Okay, it's funny you mentioned monetization, because I talk to so many people in the esports world, and almost to the man or woman or non-binary, gender neutral, anybody's. They all say that nobody's making money in esports. Like, all this money's being dumped in, but no one's making it. What do you see people doing right and wrong here?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an expert on that, as I'm running a business that's slowly building up audience and sponsorships, but we're not even making a ton of money to date. But I think you have these teams and players making big salaries where they're expecting down the line as more traditional sponsors kind of come into this world and more subscription opportunities and merch and all those different areas kind of develop, that they are going to make money. But you start with the audience, and the audience is definitely there in esports. So there will be ways to monetize and develop it, but it's going to take time. And the audience is always what comes first, and advertisers kind of slowly adapt to what that is, whether that was TV and radio, and then that starting to make its way into video and podcasting and digital, and that the first indicator is always the audience. And I think that's why there's so much investment and also kind of spending in this space ahead of it being profitable. Is where that audience is, they're going to figure out how to monetize it.
Fantastic. Okay, let's talk about Preediction. What is it like starting up your own media company? Like you decided to do it one day and just went for it?
Yeah, I mean, I've learned a lot over the years in building audiences in digital media and kind of fan behavior, and I felt the time was right, and I wanted to just have a go at it. And I see a big opportunity here, because a lot of the esports media companies to date are it's either kind of written news about what has already happened, recapping this is what happened at this tournament, or this controversy has taken place, or this player has left this team or joined this team. But as far as like the speculative, what this means for next week, what this means in the big picture, that really hasn't taken foot yet, and it will. And as far as like stories that can be told and stylized concepts and narrative and even like animation, like these things are so early on and not developed, that there's such a white canvas of opportunity that as somebody who has a storytelling background and likes to engage with audiences, I wanted to build that out. And I think there's enough strong personalities out there within specific esports who aren't yet being tasked with these sorts of content opportunities. Even like streamers are very popular playing the games, but telling these sorts of stories and being in some of these different content formats is new and, to me, exciting.
I'm in full agreement with you. Like the concept of my show is exactly the same. This is a completely untapped segment of the market. No one's talking on the business side. You're talking on the esports side. And now my show is like really focused on getting advice from my guests on how can people follow in your footsteps. So what advice would you have for someone looking to start up their own media company, discussing maybe some other segments of the gaming or esports market?
Yeah, I think it's be focused, have the vision and what you want to build. Start with that. Create whatever that product or initial concept is off the ground, and then get as much feedback from your audience as you possibly can to learn to iterate, but also if they want content in a certain area, be flexible, finding what works, because you're going to have an idea, but then the market's going to also tell you what's right, what's wrong, what to fix, and to go that route, and then just scrap like hell. And not everything's gonna be perfect. It's gonna take a lot of trial and error, and figure out what works for you and try to see it through.
Absolutely. Okay. Now on the marketing side, how are you guys getting your name out there? Is it completely organic? You're just relying on your personalities? Are you doing any paid advertising? How are you doing this?
Yeah, I mean, I think talent in this industry is undervalued compared to traditional sports and traditional sports media, where it's really folks have social media followings, especially Twitter, but that may be the extent of it. Like I think this is undervalued because you have folks with social reach, but also with live streaming Twitch audience reach that they can steer to your content or to a product or sponsor, and also have popular personal YouTube channels that you can kind of utilize here. So I think with our talent, it's a combination of those three, and they are kind of our ambassadors getting the word out there, because we do help them with content strategy and production and graphics, but we let them have a lot of creative license in what they're creating, and so at the end of the day, they should want to get that out there. So that's what we leverage.
Beautiful. Now, was this difficult getting them to agree to do this? I mean, when you're starting, obviously it's a blank slate, right? And you have to go and you pitch people. Did you have a deck? Did you just your charm, you wooed them over to you?
Yeah, I mean, you pitch the opportunity. A lot of these people are very opinionated and knowledgeable in the communities that they're associated in, and had not been really utilized in talking in this sorts of talk show radio type podcasting content. So it's selling that vision first and foremost, and it's just kind of little by little here as we get a couple more names who are well respected in specific communities. We can then leverage that to additional folks, and just kind of use that as a domino effect, and little by little expand this where we want it to go.
Fantastic. Okay, now focusing on you just a little bit, if I can. What makes you unique? Like, how did you pull this off as opposed to all the thousands of other people who wanted to do this idea too?
Yeah, I have a background in working with talent and in media partnerships, and I kind of know how those both work in the traditional sports sense. And people are people, and as long as you are straightforward and honest, and and hold up your end of the bargain and what you need to be delivering with them. I kind of, I guess, have that going for me, and I have a vision I want to see through. And, I've worked in early startups before, one that, took off tremendously, one that kind of got its feet stuck in the mud, and in learning lessons from both those, I'm very hardworking and determined, and want to see this through. So I think that is what plays well for me than somebody else.
Beautiful. All right. So if you can go back in time and you could talk to little Aron just as he was starting this whole venture, because some time has passed, you've learned some lessons as you've gone. What would you say to him to make this thing go bigger, faster, stronger?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still figuring it out, so I don't think I'm in the place now where I can give him all the advice to kill it at. I think it would be maybe networking in some areas a little sooner, in terms of looking to network towards some angel investors a little sooner than, building it this far along, because I really wanted to have a solid core audience in place before I sought out some of that side of it. But yeah, I think really experience is necessary for anything. So I think as much as I would try to tell that person as much as I knew, they would still have to go through it themselves to learn.
Wonderful. I love that advice. All right. So you're transforming the landscape here. Where do you see esports going in 5 years?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's going to be a lot more creative complement in terms of coverage of it. To right now, you have the live productions and a little bit of analysis, from some of the casters and commentators. around it. You have, some of these sites that are very news driven, but that whole world where like traditional sports, you have like the ESPNs and Bleacher Reports and CBS Sports and all these areas of focusing on the fandom and giving them what they want in terms of what's next and speculative content and just like that, having fun and talking with each other at a bar type conversation once those exist again. That is going to happen. There is going to be a lot of really creative, whether it's opinionated analysis, whether it's storytelling, whether it's animation, that sort of content is not really happening yet in esports. When you look at like how sophisticated traditional digital sports coverage has become, and part of that is because there hasn't been a lot of investment and resources dumped into esports media like traditional sports had, for 30 years. And then, from the TV analysis to sports talk radio developing to, the web 2.0 and web 3.0 and apps and all of that took a lot of time and money and people growing up wanting to be media personalities in these certain worlds. That's going to develop in esports. The audience is there. It's the next generation of fans that advertisers want, that like, you have traditional sports that some of them are aging out in fandom, that they know, they need to reach that next generation here. But they don't know exactly how to go about it. So you're going to see a ton of great media companies emerging in this world as resources and time and the esports themselves still develop.
Fantastic. Okay, I want to talk about you again, if I can, for a second. Now, you've talked about all the fantastic things you've done, all the wonderful success you've had, the wonderful things you're building. But I think we learn most of our lessons in life from the failures that we've had. So I want to ask you, what is something you have failed at and what did you learn from it?
Yeah, I mean, the company before this was a sports podcast network, seed stage startup that I joined. I was kind of told they had more funding than they actually did, and their audience was a little higher than it was. But even with like very little resources, I grew it from like 200,000 monthly listeners to well over 3 million listeners without money. And like, we weren't able to properly monetize that audience in 2015, 2016, because advertisers it was not as mature in the podcasting space as it's becoming today. So, I learned that you can be too early in a space. I learned that, if you have an audience and can hold on tight, there will be monetization available to that over time. And I kind of learned that you don't need all the resources if you have the right vision, to make it in this space, and also trusting your partners and working with the right people. And I was kind of misled in some ways there, and it didn't work out. And I overextended myself with some of the shows we put together, and I honestly learned more from that not working than Bleacher Report was just like a rocket ship to hold on to. And we had so many smart, like brilliant people in so many departments that killed it there. I think I learned more from the thing that didn't work out as well, from that perspective.
All right, that's so cool. All right, what is something you're working to improve on in yourself?
Yeah, I think it with myself, it's don't don't be afraid. It's try things and find out what is going to work from what won't, and better selling and marketing myself. I'm very pragmatic and honest, and I found as being a startup founder, that's not always what investors want to hear. Why you're going to kill the market, despite whatever your modest projections are, and why this is going to be a $1 billion company, and things like that are new to me, for selling myself, and I need to get a little better at that, and I've learned to date in improving that area.
Okay, what's your next big move in prediction?
We're going to expand into the biggest esports out there. We're talking to some major names in League of Legends, LCS, and LEC. We're talking to some big names in kind of the game and emerging esport community of Valorant, that I think we're going to tell some unique stories within. Where we'll expand into CS:GO, competitive Fortnite, esports fantasy. I see some esports betting show analysis potential there, and we're also building out a couple of docu-series narrative storytelling, evergreen concepts to complement our week-to-week what's happening in these different leagues and communities. So there's a lot of development happening. There's some really exciting media partnership opportunities that we are deep in developing, and we're going to keep building this out.
Beautiful, Aron. This has been fantastic. And it's very clear that you are well practiced at being an announcer. So how do people find you? Where are you out on social media? How do they get to Preediction?
Yeah, so you can find us on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts if you search for Preediction with 2 E's, Preediction, or Twitter Preediction. Our show hosts. If you're a fan of Dota 2 or Call of Duty or Call of Duty League or Smite Pro League or Super Smash Brothers Ultimate, Rocket League, some of the biggest commentators and pro players in these different leagues, you can find them right now and find their content, discover our whole umbrella. So, you don't have to search out every individual show. We're trying to have a full comprehensive lineup, so you can be up to speed on every league that you love, with some of the names that you really respect, to tell you the stories and tell you what's up.
Okay, this one just popped into my head. How is it trying to create this sort of comprehensive schedule of shows in the age of on-demand?
Yeah, so it's a mix. Our shows are live throughout the week on Twitch TV, Preediction Esports. We're on demand, uploaded to the YouTube channels of our talent, and then on the audio side, we're up on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, but we're also talking to some OTT networks. We want to this show is it's made for video, it's made for audio, and working for as many quality partners as we can work with to kind of spread the gospel.
Beautiful. All right, Aron, this has been a wonderful interview. Thank you so much. Is there any last points you want to make, or anything I didn't ask you think we still need to cover?
No, I think we're good. I have several other calls today, and I need to have some of my voice remaining.
All right. Well, Aron Glatzer, thank you so much for coming on with us today.
All right. Awesome. No, glad to be here. Thanks for reaching out.
Absolutely. And everybody else, I'm going to remind you all, don't be just a gamer, be a gamerpreneur.